Hello, everyone, and welcome back in for another week of Palmetto Playbook. I'm Alan Marcus Harder, the 5 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. producer here at WMBF News.
And I'm TJ Turner. I'm a digital content producer here at WMBF, and we're going to break down the conference championship weekend. We had some anticlimactic matchups as well as the closest game of the week, which I think was a pretty boring game in a 13-10 Big Ten championship win for Indiana over Ohio State. I expected a lot more fireworks in this game than we saw. We had only 23 points scored total in the game, which I thought each team would easily score 23 points themselves, with Indiana winning this game on a field goal at the end of the game.
I mean, honestly, I think this is the testament of how good both defenses are. I wouldn't say like both teams played particularly bad. It was just that both defenses are better than a lot of people. I mean, I know Ohio State obviously was the number one team coming into the country. I kind of just expected them to run away with this game, but Indiana showed that they're legit. I mean, they have kind of throughout the entire season put a little bit of respect on their name. But yeah, they were out for the fight, very much a defensive battle. I didn't expect Indiana's defense to be able to really compete with, the weapons that Ohio State has with Jeremiah Smith and their other really good receiver. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Carnell Tate.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of Ohio State. Ohio State has a lot of weapons, and Indiana did a good job of limiting their impact on the game. It was just a really good game for Indiana's aspect, obviously, to come away with the win. I think it was this is their first outright conference championship since 1945. To put that into perspective, that was the year World War II ended. So it's been a very long time. They had, I can't remember what year it was, but they had 1 year in between then. It was still a long time ago where they were, I guess, joint champions, but their first outright.
I want to say that was in the 60s.
Yeah, their solo championship since 1945, and obviously that's a very long time ago. Yeah. But it was a good performance from Indiana.
Yeah, we had some deja vu there for Ohio State fans as well in a big game, missing a crucial field goal as they did, I believe, a few years ago against Georgia. I want to say that game was.
Yeah, I think so, because I think that was the viral moment where it's Ohio State missed the field goal literally because it was a New Year's Eve game, but it was like an 8 p.m. kickoff, and that game went really late, and they missed that field goal as the ball was dropping in Times Square. So I think the joke was that Georgia's already off to a really great start to the new year.
Can't really start the year any better than a college football playoff win. But yeah, big game there as you can see, Fernando Mendoza there took a big hit during the game. I believe he was only out for one play, came back into the game. He put on another good performance. For him and Julian Sayin this whole year, as they've been the top candidates for the Heisman so far, they've both just been very steady. You don't see flashy numbers. You're not seeing 500 yards passing, 5 or 6 touchdowns in a game, but they're going to get the job done. They've done what they needed to do to get these two teams into this position, into the number 1 and number 2 rankings in the country, and they're just consistent. They're not going to jump off the stat sheet at you, but they're just consistent.
Yeah, they have a really good team, around them as well. So it's not like they have to carry the load. I think Indiana also has a really good run game. I don't know how prevalent it was in this game because Ohio State's defense is really good, but they have some weapons around them. And like you said, they do what they need to do to get the job done. They don't have to show out and throw 400 plus yards, 5 touchdowns every game to get wins, because they got a good team around them to also carry the load as well. It's not just all on their shoulders.
Yeah, it definitely helps a lot for Julian Sayin having a threat like Jeremiah Smith out there who's it seems like he's always open and nobody can cover him. In this game, 8 catches, 144 yards. He didn't find the end zone in this one, as the lone touchdown for Ohio State, I believe, went to Carnell Tate, as you saw earlier in the highlights, and there's the lone touchdown there for Indiana. But it was just kind of a grindy game. Both defenses showed the prowess in this one, and they showed that they are a potent defense in college football, but both offenses seem to struggle a little bit more than we would have expected coming into this game, as they've been so good throughout the year.
Yeah, but there was high expectations for both of their offense. They've been flashy all year, but it was a really good game, but just on the opposite way. We all thought it was going to maybe be like a shootout type of game, but it was more the defense taking the show. That's just how it is some Saturdays, and I'm sure Indiana's not going to complain how it turned out.
Yeah, and then moving on from the Big Ten to the SEC, we had a unexpected conference championship game in the SEC as Georgia beat Alabama 28-7. And in this game, it was close through the first 2 drives of the game. It looked like it was going to be one of those games where Georgia and Alabama just kind of go back and forth, stop for stop, score for score. And then, as you can see here, Georgia got a big pump block, which led to their first score of the game. And then after that, it was just all Georgia for 4 quarters. And Alabama just had no answer on offense or defense.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about last week. For Alabama to have success in the game, they were going to have to do something different than what we've seen out of them the past couple weeks. And clearly, it was kind of the same scenario. Just Alabama's offense struggling throughout the game. I think they had like negative rushing yards for the end the game.
Negative 3.
Yeah, you're not going to win games doing stuff like that. Alabama should have. I feel like they would have been better prepared for this moment. Obviously, it's hard to beat a team twice in the same season. Georgia, I'm sure, made a lot of adjustments after that loss to Alabama earlier in the season, but I expected this game to be a lot closer than it really was.
Yeah, watching this one for 4 quarters, it didn't even seem like Alabama had crossed the 50-yard line and gotten into Georgia territory at all. I know they had that one score, but it just seemed like the entire game Alabama just had absolutely nothing going for them. Couldn't move the ball on offense, couldn't guard anybody on defense. It was just a rough game to watch as a football fan, and especially me as an Alabama fan, watching the team go out there and put on a performance like that.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it later once we get into the bracket. Alabama's, we all thought their spot in the playoffs were secure coming into this week. But Alabama tried everything in their power to give away that spot with, flat out terrible. I'm sure that's a word that we can use to describe this game from an Alabama's perspective. It was a terrible performance from Alabama. They still stayed number 9, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a rough going for Alabama in this SEC championship game.
Yeah, we thought they were completely safe just because they were in the game and as long as they kept it close. But they were doing absolutely everything they could, like you said, to try and get out of the college football playoff. If anybody was going to remove them after a game, it would be this one. But obviously they didn't, and we'll get into that later. We had another blowout matchup in conference championship week with the Big 12 as Texas Tech blows out BYU for the second time this year, this time winning 34-7.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically the same result from when they met. I can't remember how long ago. It was probably about a month or so ago when these two teams met up in Lubbock, Texas. I believe it was a home game for Texas Tech. And I think College Game Day was there. But Texas Tech proven once again that they're one of the best one of the top highly ranked teams in college football this season. And yeah, it was just another pretty bad performance from BYU when playing one of their best teams on their schedule this season and once again falling completely short.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this Texas Tech team plays against better opponents in the playoff, as they're obviously in now. But their team has just dominated. I think their defense can play with anybody. I think their defense is one of the best in college football, and they can play with any team. But I'll be interested to see if their offense can do the same thing against those better teams as they get into this better competition in the playoff.
Yeah, it'd be something exciting to see. I mean, they've been flashy all year. I mean, Texas Tech has been notorious for having a really high-powered offense, and so far they've shown it so far. I wouldn't say their level of competition hasn't been the best compared to the other conferences, I guess besides the ACC. But, I mean, they've done exactly what they've needed to do to get in this spot, and they'll be definitely an exciting team to watch.
Yeah, they've done it on the back of that defense, and especially Jacob Rodriguez, their stout linebacker, who I think personally should have been a Heisman candidate this year. He didn't make the final cut, but he's had 114 tackles on the year, 7 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions, and he's even got a rushing touchdown offensively as they threw him in the Wildcat in one of the games and he got into the end zone. Interesting enough, he also threw an interception in the Wildcat one day, so I don't know if you add that interception to his stats or not.
I guess you have to put that in there at some point, but yeah, I mean, you mentioned in the Heisman, I feel like it's just become basically a quarterback award over the past couple of years. It's hard for a running back, or I mean, we had Devontae Smith win it a few years back, but it seems like I feel like all the national attention is going to the quarterbacks, and I mean, defensive players deserve some love too, and he's definitely done what he's done a lot this season to put his name in that conversation.
Yeah, and then moving on from an underwhelming game to an underwhelming conference this season in the ACC, as their championship game was actually probably the best championship game we saw this past weekend, as it went into overtime with Duke getting the win over Virginia. It was definitely interesting to see that this was the most exciting conference championship game this season, because the ACC has not been the most exciting conference this season, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, the ACC has just been all over the place. The fact that you have now they were 7-5 team coming into the conference game. Now I guess they're now 8-5. It's crazy that you can look at that record and say, yeah, they were the conference champions. It's just anybody, I guess, can beat anybody in that week, and there wasn't really like, I guess, Georgia Tech was the early favorites. Miami, they were running away with the conference earlier in the season, but then they had some pretty bad losses down the stretch to let Duke weasel their way back into it through like the back door with the whole like how the ties all played out and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a very good game to watch. I wouldn't say they're two particular like really good teams. But Duke played really well. They almost blew it down the stretch, letting Virginia back into the game, taking it to overtime, and how all that unfolded. But yeah, it was I would say it was a shock. I didn't really expect. I was hoping Duke would win, because I just wanted a little bit of chaos to how the playoffs were going to shake out. I still didn't expect how the bracket went as it did, but. Yeah, I was hoping for a little bit of chaos in it. I think it would have just been funny to have a 7-5 team win their conference championship and just show that the ACC is probably one of the worst Power 4, I guess it's Power 4 now, since there's only 2 teams in the Pac-12 now. So, yeah, I think you can safely say the ACC is the worst of the Power 4 conferences.
Yeah, definitely this season. And I would have been interested to see if Virginia was able to pull that game off with how bad Alabama played. I wonder if that game could have potentially bounced Alabama out of the playoffs, because Virginia was a lot closer in the rankings than Duke. Duke obviously with no chance of getting into the playoff at 7-5 prior to the game. But I thought it would have been interesting to see how things shook out if Virginia was able to win that game.
Well, I think Alabama still would have got in. That Virginia would have took up the spot that James Madison had.
Yeah.
Because that the top 5 ranked conference championships, that would have put Virginia, I think, 3rd or 4th in line, and then Tulane getting that last spot, and then James Madison being left out of the conversation.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned, Tulane and JMU both played in their conference title games this past weekend, both winning. Tulane and James Madison both putting on good performances. The JMU and Troy game happened to be a lot closer through the whole game than I thought it was going to be, with Tulane running away with their game as expected. But that JMU-Troy game was definitely a lot closer than I think people expected it to be.
Yeah, I expected James Madison to go out and take care of business early. But Troy, to Troy's credit, they played really well. They had a good game plan coming into this game, keeping the game close late against James Madison, and even just doing that's pretty hard against this James Madison teams that have just been blowing out their Sun Belt opponents throughout the season. Obviously, unfortunately for Coastal's aspect, we saw that a few weeks ago at Brooks Stadium. But yeah, James Madison has a pretty high-powered offense. I don't know how much it's going to translate once we get into the actual playoffs, but I don't know if this is like a testament of like how like all the coaching carousel has been turning out. All these like mid-major programs having to also worry about their head coaching, getting stuff set up for next season. I don't know if I guess they're putting, I would hope they're putting 100% into everything that they're doing for this season, but it's hard not to ask, hey, is like a little bit of attention going to their new programs for next season when, you should still be focusing on the task at hand. I don't know if that played a factor into how things turned out.
Yeah, it's interesting to see when those coaches do decide to stay for a playoff run. with James Madison coach leaving. I believe Tulane's coach is leaving as well.
I believe so. I think
yeah, with both coaches leaving, them going on a playoff run here, like how dedicated are they to this team that they coached the whole year? Obviously, they've been dedicated for the whole season, but now knowing that they're leaving, how does that play out?
Yeah, I mean, I think even in some of their post-game interviews, they were talking about how some of these coaches were going to be taking a few days off to go on the trip to their new program to get things in place. It's just a crazy thing of how college football is turning at this point in the season when all their attention should be focused on. I mean, I can't blame the coaches. I mean, at some point you have to do what's best for what you're going to do, but it just sucks that it has to even come down to that point.
Yeah, college football is just in such a weird state right now. And we're about to start the playoff as me and Alan Marcus are going to take you guys through our brackets and give our picks for this year's college football playoffs. We've got the bracket up here, and I'm going to take you through my picks first, who I think is going to win each round. So for the first round, JMU Oregon, I have Oregon winning that game. I think it's not going to be close. I think Oregon is going to handedly beat JMU. I know they have that high-powered offense, but I just don't think it can compete with a Power 4 team. And then I've got Alabama beating Oklahoma. That game against Oklahoma earlier in the season was very close, and I think Alabama should have came out on top in that game, and I think they played well enough too. And I think after that embarrassing loss to Georgia, they're going to bounce back and basically play angry in this game, and I think they're going to come out with the win. They'll face number 1 Indiana, and then I think this Tulane Ole Miss game is going to go exactly how it did in the regular season. Yeah, they're going to take that one home very easily. And then I think in terms of first-round matchups, I think this Oklahoma-Alabama game is going to be really good. I think this Miami and Texas A&M game is the biggest game that could go either way. I really have no idea who's going to win this game. I think Texas A&M has the slight edge just because they were better in the regular season, and I just think an SEC schedule is much harder than an ACC schedule, especially with what that conference looked like this year. And then second round, I have Texas Tech beating Oregon. I think Oregon's namesake is their offense and that high-powered offense, and I don't think they can do it against Texas Tech. I think Alabama is going to beat Indiana. I think if the same Alabama team shows up, beats Oklahoma, I think if they can pull that first game off, that the team is going to be ready for a deep run, and they're going to carry that momentum and beat Indiana as well. I think if Indiana can put up 13 points in a game, Alabama can put up more against their team. And then I think Ole Miss and Georgia are going to play, and I think that Georgia is going to take that game. I think Ole Miss is going to struggle without Lane Kiffin and moving on, new coaching staff, everything's all messed up there. So I think the locker room is just going to be a little bit conjumbled, and they're going to fall to Georgia, who's looked really strong in the last few weeks. And then I think Ohio State and Texas A&M, I think that Ohio State is going to pull that game off. Moving on, that will put them against Georgia, where I think Georgia is arguably the best team in college football right now with how they played against Alabama this past week and how they played to finish out the year. And then I think Alabama is going to beat Texas Tech. I just don't think Texas Tech has the team as a whole put together that can beat an Alabama team, especially coming off these 2 wins. I think if Alabama can make a run and carry that momentum, I don't think Texas Tech can compete with this Bama team just because of the athletes they have on the field. And then Alabama-Georgia, the matchup everybody loves.
Three-peat.
The matchup everybody loves, Alabama against Georgia, which happens every year, third game of the year. It's split. It'll be split at this point as Georgia's taking a game, Alabama's taking a game. And I think Alabama is going to come out on top and win their 19th national championship. All right, what's Alan Marcus thinking about his bracket this season?
Well, as I've said throughout this podcast and even earlier, this is still TJ's for right now, so we'll hopefully change.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a little bit of chaos, as you can tell. It's going to be a long shot, but I'm going to pick James Madison just for the sake. Let's put on for the Sun Belt, show the world what the Sun Belt can do. So I have James Madison going on the road, beating Oregon. We have Alabama versus Oklahoma. I have Alabama also winning that game. That's the game earlier this season. I think that game earlier this season, I think it was more so Alabama beating themselves than Oklahoma actually running away with that game. Oklahoma's offense has been pretty bad recently. Alabama controlled that game. They just had turnovers and did a bunch of dumb stuff to let Oklahoma even in that game. So I have Alabama winning that game. We've seen this matchup earlier this season. It's hard. I think it'd be as much as I like some chaos, I think it'd be very hard for me to pick Tulane over Ole Miss when Ole Miss beat them by like 41-7 earlier this season. I don't think I don't think that much is going to change for that to happen. So I have Ole Miss winning that game, and then we have Miami and Texas A&M, two teams that have kind of faltered down the stretch. A&M, I think, has had the harder schedule throughout the season, but I think the SEC better prepares them for this playoffs than the ACC. But for Texas A&M, the majority of their SEC opponents were bottom half opponents. I don't think they're as tough of a team to beat as people expect them to. South Carolina almost did it, and we've seen how bad South Carolina has been. South Carolina should have won that game, but I have A&M beating Miami. So we'll go to the quarterfinals now. As much as I want some chaos, I gotta be realistic at some point. I have Texas Tech beating James Madison. This Alabama-Indiana game, Alabama has been pretty bad recently. The struggles that have gone there, their offense hasn't been as good as it was earlier in this season, and I think Indiana is going to prove a lot of people. I mean, they keep doing it throughout the season. At some point, I got to give Indiana credit for picking up these really good wins. They beat Oregon, I believe, earlier in the season. They just beat Ohio State in the conference championship game. So I'm going to have Indiana advancing. Now here, some more chaos. I'll have Ole Miss beating Georgia, just for the sake that I want to see LSU have to pay Lane Kiffin some money for the fact, because LSU will pay any bonuses that Lane Kiffin would have won if he stayed with Ole Miss. So screw it. Let's just pick Ole Miss over Georgia just for the heck of it. And I have Ohio State beating Texas A&M. I just think Ohio State's too good of a team to lose to Texas A&M. Into our semifinals now. I think Indiana's run will end. This game could go either way. I'm just picking Texas Tech. I think that they got a really good team there. So I have them advancing to the championship. And then out of Ole Miss and Ohio State, I have Ohio State advancing to the championship game.
Back to back for Ohio State?
I mean, they got a really good team, and they've been pretty good throughout the season. Their only slip up just that Indiana game. And I think Ohio State will be crowned the champions in Miami.
Yeah, we definitely got a lot of the same matchups in the first round. And now looking at the bracket, we've definitely got some similar games in there, some differences in there in our brackets. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. This first round, I think, is the one that's going to be the most. You can kind of see who's going to win this first round for the most part.
Yeah.
And I think after these first games, you're going to see toss-ups everywhere. You could see some upsets. You could see some crazy games where you can see. I think we could potentially see some firsts here in the college football playoff for teams like Texas Tech, teams like Indiana, who haven't been here before. And then you've got teams like Alabama, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Ohio State who have been here almost every single year since the playoff was brought in. So I think it'll be interesting to see those teams that have kind of solidified themselves in the college football playoff against some of those teams that are kind of up and coming and are unexpected to be here at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that first round, I'm glad that James Madison, don't get me wrong, I'm glad James Madison and Tulane are in that bracket. I love seeing group of 5 teams get the chance to be in this. I don't think they should be excluded. I know you could make the argument that maybe they're not the best, they're probably not the best 12 teams in college football, but I like the fact that the group of 5 regular season matters. I mean, I think it would be absurd to just leave them out. Do I expect them to have much success in this playoffs? Probably. I mean, I hope so. I don't see it happening that much. But yeah, the Alabama-Oklahoma game was close this season. The Ole Miss Tulane game wasn't close this season. I mean, I know the argument coming into this bracket, just how everything played out, who was going to get that 10 seed, Notre Dame or Miami. Yeah, I feel like that should have gone to Notre Dame. That would have created some much better matchups in this bracket. I felt Notre Dame was the better team than Miami. It's kind of torn because obviously head-to-head has to matter at some point. But with how things have played out, with how the CFP ranked Notre Dame throughout the entire once the polls were released, when like a month or so ago, they always had Notre Dame over Miami. it's kind of crazy that they waited to the last second to finally take that into account. The fact that what kind of surprised me is that Alabama's the 9 seed. I know we talked about how that the conference championships shouldn't punish teams like losing that game. Even last year, SMU stayed in the playoffs, but I believe they dropped in the rankings. Alabama's still staying as that number 9 seed. I know people were making the argument for BYU. I mean, I'm fine with them leaving out, but it's kind of it's something to think about when BYU dropped in the rankings for losing their conference championship game, but Alabama stayed at. I guess I should clarify. I think Alabama still should have been in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. I think they should have been dropped to that 10 seed instead of staying at number 9. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how everything plays out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely safe to say that after this season, the College Football Playoff Committee and the higher-ups in college football are going to have to go back to the drawing board, as Tim Beck liked to say plenty of times this season for Coastal Carolina. They're going to need to go back to that drawing board and try and figure out some more set-in-stone rules for how teams get in, how teams move, and how this playoff is going to be put into place, especially with what we saw with Miami and Notre Dame this season, BYU in that mix as well, teams like Vanderbilt and Texas, all believing that they should have gotten a shot at the playoff this season, all missing out. It was just interesting to see how everything shook up and how the playoff committee kind of jumbled teams around from week to week and just seemed to do whatever they wanted to.
Yeah, it seemed like they were just making up new criteria as the weeks were going on. I feel like this will probably I don't know when they would go into place, how much the deal is for a 12-team playoff as of right now, but I'm sure it will expand to 16 at some point, and I'm pretty sure you could look back at this year as for the reason why. I mean, I'm always for having. I mean, you don't want to get too absurd. I don't know if you go the full FCS method where you have 24 teams in, but I feel like 16. I wouldn't be unhappy with that. I mean, I'd be fine with that. Obviously, more football is probably a good thing to watch.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do in this offseason. And going from one college football or college championship bracket to another, we're going to soccer, as Furman has just entered the Final Four of the College Cup this past weekend, and we'll be interested to see that Final Four shakes up.
Yeah, the Furman team, they earned the 16th national seed, I believe, in the college soccer playoffs. The men's side, anyways. They beat Western Michigan in the second round. They beat Hofstra in the third round, went all the way to PKs, Furman coming up with that. Then this past week, they went on the road this would have been the Elite Eight. They went on the road all the way across the country to number 8 seed Portland, pulled off the win over there with an amazing goal. I don't know if we have video, I don't think we have clearance for the video, but it was an amazing goal, like from 40 yards out. The Furman player just chipping the keeper from way out. So it advances them to I would assume their first ever College Cup playoff. And like you just mentioned, it's like basically, think of it as like the Final Four for basketball. It's the last 4 teams in college soccer. And their matchups now will be much closer to the home. They'll be just up the road they'll be in Cary, North Carolina, near the Raleigh-Durham area. They have a game against Washington on Friday. At 6. I mean, I feel like I think Furman can win that game. I mean, to be honest, I haven't followed too much with college soccer, at least on the men's side this year, but Furman earned the 16 national seed. I believe Washington is unranked. I feel like Furman can at least win that game, which could possibly set up a battle of the Carolinas for the national championship, because I know NC State's on the other side of that bracket. I think they're playing St. Louis, the Billikens, in that semifinal matchup. So it would be cool to see Furman versus NC State. And I mean, you just got to have a soft spot for the small school in the upstate, showing out on the national stage. And I believe it's the Furman's head coach's last season. He announced earlier this season that this is his final season. He's been with the program for 31 years. So, I mean, it's just a telltale like Cinderella story, I guess you could say. The small school, their head coach going out. It'd be really cool to see them win the national championship as like the send-off to the coach.
Yeah, that'd definitely be cool to see, especially for a team like Furman coming in, getting that 16 seed, especially a smaller school. And I think it would be cool to see them do it against NC State as well, with a couple of cross-state rivals there.
We'll stick with soccer for just a second. We had the World Cup draw last Friday. If y'all could have been in the studio, in the WNBF studio, as me and TJ and everyone else here in the news side of things were trying to follow how this draw played out, it was pure cinema. It was for
being a fly on the wall in that room would have been something.
It was fun as we were all trying to figure out the whole spectacle of everything.
So now they go there, they go here, and then you pick a team and they decide that they can't go in this bracket or that bracket, and they move to the last one. It was definitely interesting to see, especially for some people that haven't seen a draw at all, and some people who haven't seen a draw, especially that big, as this being the biggest draw in World Cup history, I believe.
Yeah.
So many teams, so many different pots, so many different iterations of the 4 teams, and then you've got the playoff teams who are still playing for a chance to get in. So there's 4 names on the ticket. So it's definitely interesting. And the USA pulled a pretty good pot in theirs.
Yeah, as they're obviously with how the draw worked, each country were separated into 4 different pots. USA, Canada, and Mexico were in pot 1, along with the 9 best team, highest ranked countries based on FIFA rankings. USA, Mexico, and Canada were in that pot 1 because they're the host sites for this World Cup next year in June through July here in America, Mexico, and Canada. USA got the best possible choice out of pot 2. I believe Australia was I'm pretty sure Australia was the lowest ranked country based on FIFA rankings in that pot 2, which works out for USA's favor. Pot 3, we had Paraguay. Their ranking, I believe, their FIFA ranking is 39th right now. And then in that pot 4, as TJ just mentioned, we drew a playoff winner. Right now, that's between Turkey, Romania, Slovakia, and Kosovo. I believe Turkey will win that playoffs, which will put them in. Their FIFA ranking is 25th. But as a USA fan, you have to be happy with how their group stage drew out. This is a very favorable draw for the U.S. They should win this group stage. And as of right now, at least my expectations for the USA in this World Cup, getting to the round of 16 stage should be the bare minimum of what this team does. They've had some young players throughout the years. They're just now coming into their prime. They got a very favorable draw. They should top their group stage, which will set up a matchup. Assuming they win their group stage, would set up a match in I guess that'd be the round of 32 with a third place team. For how the World Cup is set up this year, they've expanded to 48 teams, so more teams advance throughout. They've had more group stages, and more teams make it to the next stage. In years past, it was 32 teams total, and only the top 2 teams in each group would advance to the round of 16. This year or next year, once it's set up, it'd be the top 2 teams from each group plus the 8th best performing third place teams in their group, which, assuming the USA wins their group, they'll be playing one of those 8 best teams. I think the USA should win that matchup. I believe that one would. The USA's first 3 group stage matchups, they play, I believe, Australia. They play 2 matches in Los Angeles and 1 match in Seattle. I can't remember exactly which country is where. But they should win that if the group stage, which will set up that matchup with the third place team, I believe in San Francisco, the Bay Area, the Levi Stadium where the 49ers plays. They should win that. And assuming all the high ranked, based on how things play out, if the high ranked countries win their group stages, I think it would set up a matchup with Belgium in that round of 16. That would be a tough test for the USA. Belgium has some really good players. Belgium has kind of lacked the success on the global stage, but they got some really good players. And it'll be a test. The USA has they have basically friendly matches leading up into the World Cup. They play Belgium, so they'll see Belgium in March in Atlanta. They also play Portugal in Atlanta. I can't remember the exact dates for those matchups, but they play both Belgium and Portugal in Atlanta in March, I believe. And then before even the World Cup starts, like I'd say about 3 or 4 weeks before the World Cup actually starts, they have some more tune-up matches. One in Charlotte. I don't know if it's been officially announced, but my friend said it seems like the rumored team that the USA will be playing in that matchup is Senegal, which will be another tough test for the USA. And then they have a match in Chicago. I can't remember exactly who they're playing in that game. But this will be a fun time for the USA men's to follow them. Obviously, having the World Cup here on home soil, with with the USA players coming into their prime, their peak prime. We've been a younger team throughout the past couple of years, but they're growing in age, getting more experience, playing in Europe and stuff like that. So they'll be a fun team to watch this season, and hopefully they live up to at least the round of 16. Hopefully they can make some more noise then, but we got a long time to go before we get to that.
Yeah, there's a long time to go. And then jumping ahead to college basketball, we had the South Carolina women's team is now ranked number 3, and they're 9-1 on the season. And then one of their alumna, Aja Wilson, was announced for 2 awards actually now, as she was announced for another award today on Tuesday, as she was the 2025 Athlete of the Year for Time Magazine for the females, and then she was AP's Female Athlete of the Year as well.
I mean, it'd be hard not to pick anyone other than Aja Will. She's been dominant on the court throughout her entire career, a proven winner from college to the pros, capping off this year with the championship win with the Las Vegas Aces. And I believe it was her 4th MVP in the WNBA, which is the most of all time. Yeah, it'd be a hard choice to pick anyone but her. She's been dominant all year. And going back to like the South Carolina women, last week we had the loss to Texas, and they played a really close game against Louisville on the road. I think their very next game, which is a tough test. Louisville took them down to the wire. South Carolina proved to learn their mistakes from the Texas game and came up with that big win down the stretch. And then obviously with the highlights you're seeing right now, followed up with a very big win over North Carolina Central. But it was good to see them adjust their playing style or just learn from their mistakes in that Texas game to pick up a tough road win over Louisville in the top, who was ranked in the top 25, especially with how close that game was down the stretch.
Yeah, and then South Carolina's men's team is now 6-3 on the year. And then moving over to Clemson, who is coming off a real tough loss to Alabama, which was a very close game in that one. And then they play against number 10 BYU.
Well,
they just played number 10 BYU.
Yeah, I don't know how much you've watched. I was watching a little bit of that game. I turned the game off at halftime because Clemson was up 21 points at halftime against number 10 BYU. That game was played at Madison Square Garden, which was also a pretty cool aspect of how things have played out. But Clemson was up 21 points over number 10 BYU at halftime, and then BYU just stormed it. It was a tale of 2 halves. Clemson dominated in the first half, and then BYU dominated in the second half. And BYU coming up with the win from, I think it was their biggest comeback in program history to come up with that win. I mean, if you're a Clemson fan, you just got to hope you can finish these games stronger. You can't be giving up a 21-point deficit. I mean, BYU is a really good team. They're one of their best players, AJ, I can't remember his last name. I mean, they say this, let's put it like this. If you watch the game, you heard his name a lot. He basically carried BYU on his back. He played really well. He's the number 2 overall projected pick in this upcoming draft. But you just got to close these games out better, no matter how good of opponent that is.
Yeah, and the women's team for Clemson is now 6-4 on the year after a loss to Alabama in the ACC-SEC Challenge, which has been going on for this whole week now, with the men's and women's teams both taking part in it. The ACC-SEC Challenge is definitely an interesting time in the season because you kind of get to see where these teams stack up against worthy opponents, as the ACC and the SEC are both strong conferences in college basketball.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting because I think Clemson's matchup, both men's and women's, were Alabama in that ACC-SEC Challenge, which was kind of interesting to see. South Carolina's men's team, they were Virginia Tech, which they lost. South Carolina could have won that game. They had their chances. They didn't take the shots. when the game was tied to possibly win the game in regulation, the offense was jumbled. They just didn't get a shot up, and then they ultimately lost in overtime. The women's team, like we mentioned, they played Louisville in that SEC challenge. But I hope this is something that continues, which I think it will. But
it's definitely good to see every season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then moving over to Coastal Carolina, the men's team is now 6-4 after coming off a big win against Winthrop, which is their second win over Winthrop this year, as they got a 4-point tough win, 88-84 against Winthrop, which is definitely a team that Coastal is very familiar with on all fronts.
Yeah, it was another tough win from Coastal, a gritty performance. Winthrop had a lead for much of that game. Coastal clawing their way back in and ultimately coming up with a win. I mean, you can't complain when you win a rivalry game. So it's good to see from Coastal. I don't know how much the success will carry on throughout the rest of the season, but just knocking down little brother, I guess you could say. That's probably some shots thrown at Winthrop, but I mean, 2 wins in the season. I think Coastal can afford to do that as of right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for both the men's and women's team for Coastal how they do as on the season. The men's team 6-4, the women's team is now 5-5 on the season. The women's team obviously with much higher expectations on this year than the men's team, but it'll be interesting to see for both the men's and the women's with kind of an up and down start to see how they play once they get into these tougher matchups.
Yeah, and we'll jump into the professional level now. The Carolina Hornets are still struggling to find success right now. They're now 7-17 in the season. Con Knuppel, I mean, still the personal growth from him this season is still good to see, regardless of how much the team has struggled so far.
Yeah, Con Knuppel is definitely adding to his Rookie of the Year campaign. We've been talking about it week in and week out, how he's just making that statement every single game. I think he's the front runner for Rookie of the Year right now, and it's looking like he's on a collision course to be holding that award once the season ends.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see from him. I just kind of wish the team around him were showing as much, I guess, growth as he has. It's just hard for the Hornets to, I mean, they're performing, I guess, what the expectations were coming this season, there were barely any expectations. But, it seems like it's going to be a long season ahead for them.
Yeah, the Hornets are living up to their underwhelming expectations before the season. And then we move across to the Carolina Hurricanes, who had the opposite expectations to start the season. And they're living up to their expectations as well, as they are now second in the division. And they're about a third of the way through the season, sitting at second in the division. They've been jumping back and forth between that top spot and that second spot in that division throughout the entire year. And it'll be interesting to see where they end up.
Yeah, as we've mentioned week in and week out of the 2 professional teams, the Carolina Hurricanes are definitely putting on for the Carolinas, and hopefully they can keep doing that for weeks and months to come.
Yeah, and then moving over to the Carolina Panthers, who we've got the Hornets, who are underwhelming. We've got the Carolina Hurricanes, who are living up to their high expectations, and then the Panthers, who are exceeding all their expectations, as they've got an opportunity to take the sole lead of the division. They're currently tied with Tampa Bay after Tampa Bay lost to the Saints, and the Carolina Panthers have the Saints upcoming this week, as the Saints are 3-10, being that one of those wins is the Panthers earlier in the season. It'll be interesting to see what happens as the Panthers play the Buccaneers twice before the season ends, which means those 2 games are going to decide the division, and they're going to decide who goes to the playoffs. Because if you don't win this division, you don't go to the playoffs. There's just not enough good teams in the division to warrant that, as there's divisions with 2 or 3 teams with 9 and 10 wins where you just can't make the playoffs winning 7-8 games in this division.
Yeah, the Panthers find themselves in a good spot. Win and you're in. You control your destiny, especially with how the schedule is shaped up, playing the Buccaneers twice with just a few weeks that are left to go. Hopefully for the Panthers' sake, they don't overlook this Saints team. I don't know if that's what they did the first time they played, but this is definitely a game that the Panthers should win. If the defense plays like they've shown they're capable throughout the season, hopefully the Panthers can take care of business, and then which will put them, I believe, in first place. And then just with everything to play for those Buccaneers games, it'll be fun to see how the season concludes for the Panthers, because so far they're doing much better than everyone expected, and hopefully they can continue to exceed expectations.
Yeah, I think for Panthers fans, it's just exciting to see them at this point in the season being where they are. With the expectations being low, they're expected to win 6 games on the year. Before the season, coming in, they've got a lot of young pieces, drafted well, obviously in the draft with Tedero McMillan coming in and making an instant impact on that offense. I think if we can see them continue to grow as they have throughout the season, you're going to see them in that playoff hunt, and they're definitely going to be looking for that sole spot at the top of the division. As you said, they're currently tied with the Buccaneers, so with the win this week after the Buccaneers lost last week to the Saints, I think they'll take over that top spot.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely they control their own destiny. And that's all you can ask for, especially with how late down the season this has become. I mean, I don't think anyone would have expected the Panthers to even be where they are right now, and just hopefully they can take care of business down the stretch. But before we wrap up, we'll go back to quickly mention the high school football real quick. The seasons in high school football officially come to a close with the state championships over the weekend. Unfortunately, our 2 local teams lost in their state championships game. South Florence losing to South Point. I can't remember the exact score, but South Point played really well. They deserved that win. It's unfortunate for South Florence. They were looking for their back-to-back titles. They fell in the 4A championship game, and then Lamar losing to Bamberg Earhart in the Class 1A state championship game. But just to have 2 teams even get that far is pretty fun to see. Hopefully they can find the same success next season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And we'll be here next week to recap all these games with the Panthers, and you've got a lot of big games coming up in college football as well. And we'll be back here on Palmetto Playbook to keep you guys updated on that next week. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you back here next week.